Now, language of a feature article also is important. Not only for the aspects that I just mentioned before in terms of it's conversational, but it also does a number of other things. First of all, they use figurative and speculative language. They don't have to necessarily speak entirely in terms of what has happened. They can say in terms of what will be. And they can try and make fearless predictions or use what has happened so far to sort of state what could happen if things transpire the way that they do. They will use figurative language to help to represent points which are usually fairly boring, especially if you're reading something about politics, for instance, and they'll compare it to something else, which is slightly more interesting. In most cases, yes, honestly, they probably are still very boring, but at least with figurative language, they're not going to put every single person who reads it to sleep. They often use humour, analogies, and puns. So they often will incur a lot of other language devices than just a feature article would. You may occasionally see a pun in the title of a newspaper article, but in terms of a feature article, you'll see the whole list. And particularly in terms of humour and analogies, those sorts of things really help to connect something, first of all, with an audience. And second of all, the humorous side, especially with a lot of article writers, is something that makes it lighthearted, makes it entertaining, and ultimately will make people want to keep reading it. They incorporate facts into an argument as well. So they will use their sources, they will put down basically who says what and use statistics as well to help them out. So if they find someone who's got some inside information, or if they have statistics that they want to use to prove their argument, they'll work it in and they'll incorporate it into their argument. They're anecdotal and conversational. As I said, they tell a story. They're a storytelling method, and because of the fact that when people read for recreation, when people read for leisure, they don't want to be bored by having lots of statistics and details, and besides, you can find that in a textbook or on a website. By making a feature article anecdotal and conversational, one thing that it does do is it communicates all those things which you would find in those boring old statistics and books, and communicates them in such a way where other people would actually be interested in them, and those who are sort of taking a passing interest would be more likely to look at it. And it often speaks directly to its audience, as in it uses second person syntax as well as you. Okay, so we mentioned before that it's sort of a we, you, us argument, but it's mostly a you argument, as in you will think this, you will think that. It is almost a method of telling you how to think, although it doesn't necessarily do that. It's just sort of saying that this is a very powerful opinion, and if you were in my position, you would probably think this way as well. Even if you're not in my position, then you've got a reason to agree with me, and if you are in my position, then you probably already do. So it uses that second person to sort of reinforce that it is having a direct conversation with you and what you should be thinking. And finally, it uses emotional language as well. So it uses language that essentially is designed to appeal to a person's own family, their own feelings, their own ways of thinking. And I'll do so in such a way where their emotions almost take over their response to it, especially if it's about something that's outrageous or something that is controversial. They will try and discuss it in such a way where it does create controversy and it does create discussion, and it certainly gets people, for instance, on Talkback Radio, for instance, and this is a prominent example, is that feature articles and works by certain columnists are constantly discussed on Talkback Radio, and it's because of the fact that they use emotional language and they get people riled up, and those people call a radio station and say and try and vent their mind and their spleen, and the host will do the same. So that use of emotional language gets that conversation and makes it a bit more than one-sided. It gets those who are reading it to use their opinion as well and sort of say, oh, that's horrible, that's rubbish, that's whatever it is that they think about it. So in summary, feature articles are personal arguments, and anything that they may be trying to pretend to be other than that is pretty much a lie, because they are always personal arguments. They use their own structure and style. Usually depends on who is writing it and their style, but ultimately, you're looking at it in terms of how they choose to represent their argument. And finally, they address an audience directly, and that's one of the most important features, and probably the feature that will be the topic of discussion should you be asked to write about a feature article, is how it addresses you and how it talks to you. Otherwise, that's it for the structure and style of a feature article. So until next time, I'll see you later.